Since the last few days, two places rarely mentioned in the same breath, Venezuela and Greenland, suddenly became central to global political debate. One is a crisis-hit oil giant in South America. The other is a vast Arctic island better known for minerals and ice rather than oil. Yet, both have featured prominently in Donald Trump's recent rhetoric about power, resources, and America's strategic future. And if you're confused about what's going on, let me break it down for you. Right as the year began, Venezuela was plunged into turmoil after a U.S. military operation captured President Nicolas Maduro and transferred him to the United States to face long-standing criminal charges. Washington framed the move as a decisive step towards accountability and democratic transition. But critics, including the United Nations and several governments, condemned it as a violation of international law. And inside Venezuela, uncertainty followed. An interim leadership backed by Maduro's allies and his vice president took over, while armed groups loyal to the old regime remained active. For a population already battered by years of economic collapse, the future became even more unclear. And of course, hanging over all of this is one overriding question: what happens next to Venezuela's oil? Now, oil has shaped Venezuela for more than a century. Discoveries in the early 1900s transformed it from an agricultural society into a global energy exporter. By the mid-20th century, Venezuela was one of the world's largest oil producers and a founding member of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. As of 2023, Venezuela's proven oil reserves were estimated at 303 billion barrels, the largest in the world. And get this, Saudi Arabia actually ranks second with about 267 billion barrels, followed by Iran at 209 billion and Canada at 164 billion. And together, these four countries hold more than half of all global oil reserves. By comparison, the United States holds about 55 billion barrels, ranking 9th globally. That means Venezuela's reserves are more than 5 times larger than those of the US. In 1976, Venezuela's oil industry was nationalized and the state oil company, PDVSA, was created. For decades, oil revenues funded social programs and gave Venezuela influence far beyond its borders. But dependence on oil became a vulnerability. Over time, mismanagement, corruption, and political interference weakened PDVSA. Under Hugo Chavez and later Nicolas Maduro, investment fell sharply due to sanctions. Production collapsed from more than 3 million barrels per day to a fraction of that. Now, does the US really need Venezuelan oil? At first glance, it may seem odd that the United States, which is the world's largest oil producer, would crave Venezuelan oil so much. But what sets Venezuelan oil apart is its quality. The US produces mostly light crude oil, while many Gulf Coast refineries were built to handle heavy crude. Those refineries still import heavy grades from Canada and Mexico to run efficiently. Retooling refineries to process only light crude would cost billions and take decades, so access to heavy oil remains valuable. And that's exactly where Venezuela comes in. On Tuesday, President Donald Trump announced that Venezuela would turn over between 30 million and 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the United States. And that's oil that has been held in storage because of previous sanctions. This plan, according to Trump, is to sell the oil at market prices and control the revenue so that the proceeds, according to him, will benefit both Americans and Venezuelans. This development marks one of the most direct interventions in Venezuela's energy sector in decades and reflects Trump's efforts to use Venezuelan oil as a strategic economic tool. But the next question is, how invested are US oil companies in this whole plan? Now, throughout the 20th century, US companies were deeply embedded in Venezuela's oil sector. That changed after Chavez's nationalizations. One by one, American firms left, and now only one remains: Chevron. Chevron survived years of sanctions and in 2022 received a special license from the Biden administration to resume limited oil production. The goal was to ease global energy pressures after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then in late 2025, the Trump administration renewed and expanded that authorization, calling Chevron a vital US partner. The company employs about 3,000 people in Venezuela and stands to benefit most immediately from any further opening. Chevron says that it operates in full compliance with US law but has not announced plans to expand just yet. But will other US giants return? Now, Trump says that Chevron won't be alone for long. He claims that major companies like ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips will return. But their past looms large. Exxon's assets were expropriated in 2007, and ConocoPhillips has lost major projects in the past. Both won multi-billion-dollar arbitration awards that Venezuela never paid. And that's actually also the basis of Trump's claim that Venezuela stole American oil. For now, both companies say that they're monitoring events, but neither has committed to any sort of investing. The major deterrent in all of this, of course, is political risk, legal uncertainty, and the enormous cost of rebuilding. And while Venezuelan oil dominates headlines, Trump has also revived interest in Greenland. It's the massive Arctic island between North America and Europe. Greenland is rich in minerals and strategically located, especially as Arctic sea routes open due to climate change, so naturally, its importance is rising. Trump has suggested a stronger US role there, but European leaders, especially Denmark, have rejected any idea of ceding control. So from Venezuela's oil fields to Greenland's frozen ground, one thing is clear: resources still shape global power. Venezuela's future won't depend on how much oil it has, but on whether stability, trust, and investment can turn buried wealth into real production. Until then, the world's biggest oil reserves will remain one of its greatest energy paradoxes.